Hey, badass crew. I want to share my personal experience with the X39 LifeWave patch. My friend John Kadori introduced me to Eddie V, who gifted me some X39 patches to try. Honestly, the first few days, I didn't really feel any different. Then I went dancing with one of my besties. I thought for sure when I woke up the next morning that I'd be stiff and sore, but on the contrary, I actually hopped out of bed ready to take on the day. I'm continuing to stay on the X39 because I'm also seeing the difference in my friend John, and I want to get those kind of results. I'll keep you posted on my experience. Go to reactivate stem cells.com /how X39 works to get the 4-minute video explaining how this little patch does so much.
Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jennie will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger, helping you whip your business into shape. Today, I have with me Amy Taylor. Now, Amy is a single mom from Missouri. She lives with bipolar disorder, ADHD, and anxiety. And she also has kids who are dealing with some of those things as well. We're not going to say issues because that puts a whole thing on that. So she has a lot of experience in this area. She is a social worker by day, working with the disabled and the elderly, and she is an MBA college student online by night, and she's a podcaster on the weekends. She's a single mom all the damn time. I totally get that. She lives a full life and loves raising her incredibly talented and gifted daughter and playing with her 3 grandkids. She's also a cancer survivor, so she's been through some stuff, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things today. So, Amy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Jennie. It's great to be here.
I am so glad you're here because you and I were introduced through a mutual friend of ours, also a former guest here on the podcast, Stacy Bryuka. So anybody who wants to go back and listen to that conversation with Stacy, highly recommend it. It's one of the funniest interviews I've ever done. I don't think I've ever laughed that hard. And that interview happened probably 4 years ago, I would say. So we'll link to the Stacy Bryuka interview in your show notes, just so that way if people want to go check that out, because she's a mutual friend. So we definitely want to connect. But Amy, so we connected through Stacy, and you and I got to talking, and we really connected on living with ADHD, mental health things that happen in life. And I was like, all right, you've got to come on the show and talk about this, because I am certain that there's a portion of the badass crew who are living with ADHD or some form of depression or anxiety, or they're somewhere on the spectrum perhaps. And they've just recently found out about this and going, how is this going to impact my life and my business? So we're going to talk about that. So let's do the real quick, let the audience know, because I gave you the bio. Tell us your story. How did you end up as a social worker? And frankly, how'd you end up doing a podcast? And where are you moving forward with all of this?
Great question. The social work was interesting. I actually went to college to be like a singer. I went for my major was music, and I was taking theater classes, and I was in a lot of plays and musicals and vocal performance. And that's totally what I was going to do. And then I ended up getting pregnant with my son, who's now like 30. And I realized that I needed to make more money than rarely having, theater performances available. Right. So I went and took a couple classes that I wasn't sure I would like or not. And one of them was a social work class, and I fell in love. I was just
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, this is so me. And so I've always been a helper. And so I decided to switch and I've never went back. So
Mm.
that was for that. And then my mental health was a journey that I've always had some kind of mental health issue like depression and anxiety. But it wasn't until I was 30 that I was diagnosed with bipolar. So that
Mm.
was kind of a surprise to me, but it changed my life being diagnosed because it meant I got the right meds. And it made life very different for me.
Oh, yeah, I imagine so because, I'm one of the few women of our generation who was diagnosed earlier ish in life, right? Any of my badass crew who've been listening for a while know that I self-diagnosed at 13, 14-ish years old when my brother was diagnosed, but got my official diagnosis at 23. But there's a lot of women I know who struggle with the fact that they're getting diagnosed in their 30s and 40s with ADHD or bipolar or these other anxiety or depression. And it's life changing because it's like, oh, someone listened to me finally. Because I know even at 23, I finally I was like, told you guys, like, told you, you know. But I think for a lot of women, there's the sense of relief to have a diagnosis. But then there's also this, okay, now what? Like, how is this going to impact my life? How is this, how does this become a part of it? So for you with the diagnosis of bipolar in your 30s, you mentioned getting on the right meds was life-changing for you. What were some of the things you were experiencing before getting diagnosed and then now after? So that way, in case there's somebody who's going, me, maybe I'm bipolar, right? Let's see if we can help some people. Go ask for the help they need.
Yeah, I was having a lot of depression, and
Okay.
that's why I was initially diagnosed with major recurrent depression.
Okay.
And I would call my dad and I would just be bawling, like sobbing. And he would say, "What is wrong?" And I would say, "I have no idea. I don't know what is wrong. Nothing's wrong."
Wow.
And I would do that a lot. And I would totally stress them out. God bless them.
Yeah.
And then when I wasn't depressed, I was doing crazy things like packing up my bags and moving to Florida overnight. Decided one night that I was going to go and packed up and moved the next morning with no job, no money, no nothing but a car, and slept on the beach until I found a job and then got a place. And I mean, I just did crazy stuff. Like I would take up all the carpet in my whole entire house because I decided, like in one day, because I just decided on a whim that I was going to redo my floors. But then by the time it comes to actually redo the hardwood, yeah, I'm done with that.
Yeah. The dopamine from the manic side. And I don't know what the current terms are. So if I say something, that's
No, you're right.
okay, good. Because my degree is in psychology, but I got my degree 25 years ago. And I know that the DSM and the way people address things has changed slightly
Right,
in some ways. So if I use some dated terminology, please feel free to correct me. It won't hurt my feelings. I prefer to use current terminology. But
right.
that dopamine and the mania, and then like the ripping up the carpet takes a while, but then
Yeah.
you get from mania to the, well, okay,
Now what?
now what, right? Because it's that roller coaster. You've come off of the high of the mania and then coming down into the, you know, for a little while, I'm sure there's a sense of normalcy for a bit,
Yeah.
right? And then getting into then again, the recurring depression.
Yes. And one of the other signs was that they put me on an antidepressant. And if you put someone who's bipolar on just like, especially certain antidepressants, but if you put them on an antidepressant
Mhm.
without an antipsychotic or anything else to stabilize their mood, a mood stabilizer or something, or at least I did, got very volatile, very angry. That's how
Ooh.
they actually finally diagnosed me because I was yelling at my son and I didn't know why. He wasn't doing anything wrong. And I was just so angry at everybody. I actually, one time, I know somebody cut me off and I like got out of my car and started screaming at them, and that's not me. And I was
Right.
like, what is wrong with me? And so I told them I'm having these anger outbursts and yelling at my kid, and I hate myself for it, and I don't know why I'm doing it. And they said, oh, it's what you're taking. This, you have the wrong diagnoses. They changed my diagnosis to bipolar, gave me a mood stabilizer, took me off that antidepressant, and I quit doing that. It was
Mm.
wonderful.
So the switch over from being on the wrong med to the right med, what were some of the things that you notice now being on the right, getting the right support? Because I'm assuming you don't just take your meds and that's it. You probably have other support that you're utilizing as part of this because
Oh, yeah.
you're a social worker. I can't imagine you're just like, oh, no, just pop a pill.
Yeah, I do like to see other social workers. Like I choose them before I choose anything else just because I understand and that's how I was trained and I
Yeah.
like that methodology. So I do go to therapy and I also see a psychiatrist every 3 to 6 months. And I have to take care of myself. If I get really tired, I need to rest. And if I need to take some space and time by myself, then I need to do that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the benefits you've seen from having the treatment now as part of this?
Well, I've been able to hold a job for 11 and a half years at the same place, which I could not have done before. But I will say part of that is because my company is amazing at working with me.
Oh,
And
good.
like I said, if I need to sleep in, I will call my boss and say, I'm exhausted and I need to just sleep for 2 more hours. And so I'll move my schedule 2 hours down and go in at
Gotcha.
like 10 instead of 8. And she lets me do that. And that means the world to me because if I don't get enough sleep, I get
Mhm.
manic. And I do not want that.
Yeah,
Although
no.
I do like being manic.
Right. Well, I imagine based because you're not the first person I've known in my life who lives with bipolar.
Mhm.
And I've heard from my other friends who are living with it that yeah, the manic phase is actually it's like a natural high.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're superhuman, like
Hmm.
you could do absolutely anything. My last manic phase was about 6, 7 months ago.
Okay.
And I signed up, I went back to school for my MBA, which
Hmm.
ends up being a good thing. But when I came down and was depressed again, it was very hard to get through it. I started applying for other jobs at my work, like jobs that I really wasn't qualified for.
Well, I can do that. Yeah, that's the superhuman mentality. Oh, I can do that. I'm not qualified for it, but I can do
Exactly.
it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I started a podcast. I did all these things all at once and was just
Mm.
like still having to take care of my kid and work full time and everything else. And so I signed on to way too much. And my friends and family were going, wow, you're doing a lot. I also went to an NLP training and was working on that certificate. There was no end to it. I just kept signing up for classes and things. And so when I finally came down and hit a depression about a month ago, I had to call my school and say, I need some accommodations. I need more time to get my work done because I'm totally depressed. And I was having that ADHD thing of where you can't initiate that task.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I like couldn't get started on my homework, let alone get it done.
Yeah.
So they were nice and gave me extra time, which helped. And I had to call my work and take some FMLA because I was too depressed to work. So
Wow.
while they fixed my meds, because that's the thing is your meds can be working.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know if it's because I went through menopause and my hormones changed or what it was, but it just all of a sudden it wasn't working anymore.
Yeah. I was gonna say because when as you were first talking about things, one of the things that popped up in my head, but I wasn't gonna say anything, but you mentioned it was hormones,
Hmm.
right? Because it's not unusual, and I believe the statistics are that there are more women, especially, biologically female people who live more females live with bipolar than men, if I remember correctly. And so I wonder if there's a hormonal component to that.
There might be. I think
and obviously we're not going to fix that here on this,
no, but that's
right?
something they've never really studied women's issues like menstrual cycles and that kind of thing, but they're starting to do that now. So maybe there'll be something for that in the future.
Hallelujah. Because I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I feel just myself, I know I've experienced my ADHD goes through cycles with my cycle, which
Yeah.
I'm in perimenopause, totally open with my audience because I'm totally open with everyone in my life. I don't care. I grew up in a medical household where we talked about all kinds of things at the dinner table. So pretty much
Right.
really nothing is off the table for me. So I'm like, if it's TMI for you, that's fine. I don't mind sharing it. I'm not gonna trauma dump, but I will certainly share
Right.
with people. I know in my own life, when I hit certain hormonal phases, like when my body went into like overdrive of hormone, because I feel like there's a part of perimenopause where the body realizes, oh, wait, we're about to hit that part where we can't have babies no more. And so it
Right.
like sends you into overdrive. Cause I swear the number of women I've talked to who hit their late 30s, early 40s, and all of a sudden there's a sexual awakening in their body and they feel like an 18-year-old boy with how much they're thinking about wanting and pursuing
That's
sex.
and that's so fascinating that you say that because I had my daughter at 40. And I did go through this like right before I got pregnant with her. I was just like so like sex, 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 And I thought it was the bipolar because the bipolar can do that to you if you're in a
Right.
manic phase. And yeah, so I thought it was always that, but it could have been a mix of that and hormones.
Yeah, it could have just been that perfect storm of this, and that, right? So
Yeah.
anybody who's listening right now who's in their early to mid 30s, get ready, y'all. It's
Yeah.
coming. I'm
Get on
telling you,
birth
because
control.
I mean, yeah, like take care of yourself depending on where you are in life and what you want to do.
Right.
Because I know that hormones play a lot of role in the body. I mean, they control literally everything in our body. So it would make
Right.
sense that if you're now going through menopause, that could affect how your medications are going to interact in your body. So they're going to have to like, oh, time to recalibrate, time to switch up. So
Right.
be great if they could figure this out for us. Although we're probably going to have to be the ones to go to them and go, hey, have you ever considered that maybe there's a hormonal component to this? Because
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, go back through, look at all of your patients. You've got the data. We had to change her stuff at this appointment.
Yeah.
She
It
mentioned
should make
she's going through
sense.
menopause. Like, we can't be the only people seeing this pattern already. I mean, come on. Anyway, so we're also discussing ADHD, right? And again, we're going to speak about our own personal experiences of it. I've had other ADHD experts on who were able to speak to the general aspect of it. So with the bipolar, and it's not unusual, by the way, and it's not unusual for people with ADHD to have comorbidities, meaning having other mental health diagnoses that go along with it, such as autism, bipolar, depression, anxiety. Oh my gosh, so many, and physical. Like there's something interesting about
Yeah.
ADHD being comorbid with a lot of different things. I hate that
Hmm.
word, but that's what they call it. So it is what it is. So let's talk about the ADHD and how it plays into personal and business life. So for you, what were well, first of all, if you don't mind sharing, when were you diagnosed with your ADHD?
Not until about 5 years ago, and I'm 53.
Late in
And
life diagnosis, y'all. It's a
yeah,
thing.
I wish I had known as a kid.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember, and I'm a few years younger than you. I'm 46. The first time I ever heard of ADD, because that's what it was called back in the day, was around the time that my brother was diagnosed. A friend of mine in school had just been diagnosed. A boy had just been
Mhm.
diagnosed. So I had heard of it, but I didn't know what it was. And then my parents sat us down and had the conversation about my brother being diagnosed. Of course, he was diagnosed first.
Right.
Right? Because I just saw this on, I think it was TikTok or Facebook Reels or something, where part of the reason that ADHD people get diagnosed when they do is because suddenly it becomes something that is incredibly inconvenient, especially for other people, because the things we are experiencing and have experienced our entire lives and have created coping mechanisms and different skills and blah, blah, blah. Now all of a sudden it's started impacting other people and we recognize it and they recognize it. And we go, oh, what are we going to do about that? Like, what is this? Why is this? Right.
Right.
So what brought about your diagnosis? Like what got you to go in and talk about that?
I was having a horrible time focusing at work. I just couldn't do it. And I couldn't start my task. And I work off a thing of task and I was just not getting them done like I used to. I do know that when I was younger, I did things like self-medicate.
Yeah.
And I would find other ways to bring myself down or to, do what I needed to do. And you can't do that at 53 or you ain't going to live very much longer.
Right. Yeah. Well, so when we talk about self-medication, like, or some of the coping skills, right? I know some people use smoking, like there's something in nicotine that helps with ADHD.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people with ADHD from 20 years ago.
Caffeine is very helpful.
Caffeine. Yeah. Hello. I'm a coffee drinker. That's part of the reason why I love coffee so much is it like it brings me in, right? Other people like neurotypicals, they're like, I shake too much. And I'm like, you're not ADHD then, because this is medicine for me.
Right.
Some of the other coping skills, like, well, I guess probably unhealthy coping skills is what you were maybe, or medicines is what you were talking about. So for some people it might be drinking or other things that are out there.
Taking drugs that normally would make people very excited and stay up all night and all that stuff. And it really leveled me out.
Right. It does the opposite for the ADHD brain.
Yeah.
Which is why we're so different.
Yeah.
I know for me, my experience, I tried pot a couple times in college, like smoking marijuana. And I remember the first time I was like, I don't feel anything. Like, I don't get why this is such a big deal for people.
Right.
Right. And the second time, and both times one of my best friends at the time was with me, and she was the one who noticed the pattern because now she had 2 times that she had seen me. I'm going to put air quotes around this for those of you who can't see us, because you can't, because it's an audio podcast. She had seen me high, and she said, Jennie, you just had a conversation about the same topic for 10 minutes and you didn't like veer off and go down some weird ass road like I've known you to do for 5 years now. And I was like, oh, is that what it's like to not have ADHD? Because I hadn't been diagnosed yet, but I knew. And so, is that what it's like to not have ADD? And she's like, yeah. And I went, wait, pot makes me normal? Okay, I'm not going to jail for this. Because this is 27 years ago when it was illegal, right?
Right.
So knowing that you can't do that anymore. So you go in to have a conversation about something's going on.
Right.
You went through the process. What was your experience did you choose to try pharmaceutical medicines, or how do you support your ADHD?
Yes, I did. I take Vyvanse, which has just been incredible for me because number one, I have a lot of sleep issues and it gets me awake during the day. But it also definitely helps me focus.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a big difference.
That's amazing. Because I know when I got diagnosed at 23, we tried the 2 medications that were available at the time, the big names that everybody pretty much knows. At the time, I didn't notice a difference, but looking back, it may have just been that I was normal and didn't know it, because when I started taking lion's mane last year, at the end of last year, I started on lion's mane because I had heard from an ADHD creator online that, if you're not willing to go get diagnosed, or if you're not willing to do this, here, try this. It's an over-the-counter mushroom thing you can try. I was like, So I did a little bit of research to make sure it wasn't like going to kill me, make me high, whatever. I don't know about any of that. Start with my lion's mane. First few days that I took it, didn't notice anything. Then one day I forgot to take it.
Oh.
And halfway through the day went, why am I pinballing so much? What's going on? I went, oh, I didn't take the lion's mane. Right. So it's not that you notice it, at least for me, I don't notice like this massive like shift. It's not like when you're drinking alcohol,
right,
and you suddenly sense the tipsy or the buzz or the whatever, right? It's this very subtle, for me, it's a subtle shift. And I describe it, my ADHD brain is a pinball machine, except it's got 7 pinballs all going at the same time and 4 flappers to try and keep them all going.
Right.
Right. But I only have 2 buttons to control it.
Good luck.
Right, exactly. Right. So I describe what the lion's mane does for me is it takes out, like, instead of me having 7 pinballs, it takes out like 4 of them and slows down the ones that are in there so I can see what's going on and follow them easier. So there's still a lot going on. Don't get me wrong. Right. It's not like all of a sudden I'm like robot laser focused.
Right.
But I can now suddenly recognize, oh, hey, I'm starting to get off task here. Get back on. Right.
Right.
It's a very subtle thing. So it's quite possible that in my 20s, one of those drugs was working for me and I just didn't recognize it because I expected this massive change. Because I know my brother talked about how he hated being on it because he didn't feel like himself, and was like, I didn't feel anything.
My son's friends told him he was boring when he was on it. So he stopped taking it as soon as he was 18.
Yeah, but well, I won't share my brother's entire story. It's his story to share, but I just remember we would have these conversations when I still lived at home where I'd be like, dude, I need you to take your medicine so I don't kill you. Because when you're not on it, I want, like, and I have the same thing you do, just not to the extent you do. And dude, I want to throttle you right now.
Right. Oh, I can tell when my daughter doesn't take her meds. Oh my gosh. I'm like, she will be talking a mile a minute. And I will have to be like, did you take your medicine this morning? And she's like, no, why? Why do you ask? I'm like, well, let me tell you.
Right. No, that is so interesting. So how about non-medical or non-medication support? What are some of the things that you've put into place to support your ADHD outside of the medicine and outside of the, talking with a therapist counselor? What else have you noticed that you've done now to support that?
Well, I do things like the Pomodoro method. I have a little tomato timer and I set it for 25 minutes and I work for 25 minutes and I can't switch tasks during that time. And then I take a break and then I do it all again. So that helps me a lot.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's like my indicator to start. Like I start hearing that and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be working. So, because that dopamine seeking thing that you get when you have ADHD, I want, like, my new thing is the podcast. Yes. And so I want to be focused on that. So it's very hard for me to focus on other things. Yes. It's like you get this tunnel vision on the project that you have that you're all gung-ho about and nothing else matters.
All right, everybody with ADHD who knows about the hyper-focus portion of, because that's what is so freaking weird about ADHD is the fact that we have that difficulty in focusing on other things, but really what it is we have difficulty focusing on shit that doesn't matter to us.
Right.
Once we find the thing that we want to do, then no holding us back. And it's so funny how it shows up in different ways. And I mean, please tell me if this happens to you. Like, I will not clean my house for the longest time. And then all of a sudden I get that wild hair is what I call it. The wild hair to clean.
Yeah. And you clean every room and
has to be clean. Like it's this like, and so I will literally spend an entire day doing that. Now, I've also found that it tends to happen when I'm trying to avoid doing something else that I don't want to do. Right. So it actually happened to me a little bit today, whereas because I spent like 20 minutes like reorganizing my desk because it's been a little bit of a mess. So it did need it. Don't get me wrong. And I have found that the more disorganized my desk and my house is, that shows how overwhelmed I am.
Yes.
Because I'm not keeping up with the everyday things.
Yeah.
So
I usually know my depression is coming if that's happening. My mom will come over to my house and go, have you been taking your meds? Have you been feeling okay?
Oh, wow. So she's noticed the pattern too.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it is time to pick up.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because we don't feel like doing it until someone, and then all of a sudden we get the body doubling thing. Do you body double?
I have tried it and I'm okay with it, except for I feel this need to talk during it. And they want you to just sit there and do your thing, you know? So it's hard for me.
Yeah. The social butterfly part of us. Yeah. I don't body double for work per se when I'm working on stuff necessarily, but I do like to body double for cleaning.
Yeah.
Right. Like when I'm like, okay, this really needs to happen. Do what, you know, and so I've got a friend of mine who I can call up and be like, hey, would you come over and hang out with me while I clean? You don't have to actually clean. I just want like, because I realized before I knew what body doubling was.
Right. That it helped.
Like, because I always feel the need to then clean up. Because I guess it's that self-judgment perception of, oh, somebody else is here. I should work on getting things cleaned up because somebody's here.
It's also just having something to do while you're cleaning, because it's like cleaning is not enough. You have to be doing something at the same time. So talking to a friend or something is helpful.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And my kids have even learned about the body doubling thing because my youngest inherited my lack of room cleaning, organization skills, and my oldest is pretty decent at doing it themselves. And they noticed that my youngest was struggling with it. And so a couple of weeks ago when they were at my house, because I split custody with their dad, my oldest was so kind and went and sat in their younger sister's bedroom while they cleaned.
Oh, sweet.
And just kept saying, okay, and now the next thing, and then do this. Like,
right.
My oldest didn't start cleaning. They just recognized the benefit of body doubling. And I was like, I'm so freaking proud of you right now. Because I came upstairs, I'm like, where are the kids? You know, looking around going, where are the kids? And then I hear them in Rachel's room and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I wish y'all could see my face because I was like, you know, that moment as a parent when you're like, it's too quiet.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening? Like the kids aren't doing what they normally do.
Right.
What's going on? And then you walk in and find that. And you're like, Mom win, kid win. You guys are amazing. Good job. Keep going. Don't let me distract you.
That's awesome. Yeah, my daughter has ADHD and autism.
Okay.
And you have to literally walk her through cleaning her room step by step. It's exactly what your kids were doing for each other. You have to be in there and be like, okay, now pick up the trash and put it in the big trash so it can go out. Now hang up your clothes.
Yep.
And if you tell her 2 or 3 things at a time, like, hey, don't forget to hang up your clothes, stack your books up. No, that doesn't work.
Nope. Yeah. And now one of the things that I've done in the past too, that I found was helpful was to have a whiteboard with a checklist.
Yes.
So if I couldn't be there for whatever reason, maybe I had a bunch of podcast interviews already booked or something, I would put the list on the whiteboard and say, you know, as you do each of these things, check it off.
Right.
But before you check it off, I want you to pretend like you're me and look around your room with a different set of eyes. And would mom be okay with that?
I love that. I'm using that.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
Please do. Like, like think about the way mom does. Like, I want you to like jump out of your own head and what you're okay with living with. Because
Yeah.
obviously their room's a mess. They're okay
Right.
with living with it like that, right? Or because if they
Exactly.
weren't okay with it, they would have cleaned it up, right?
Right.
So it's that okay, yes, you've done the thing. And then don't forget before you put the check, the trigger is look around with mom's eyes,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so I would go before I let them check it off, I would have them come get me first so I could show them, like
Mm-hmm.
teach them what here's what I see. I see that thing down in the corner that you missed, or that's under the desk. I'm not just talking about the stuff that's not under the desk. You have to get under the desk and clean the stuff under the desk and all those different things that come because
Yeah.
we think about things as parents differently
Oh, yeah, definitely.
than the kiddos. Amy, I could talk about all this with you forever.
Oh, I could too.
This was awesome. And you have put together a really cool gift for the Badass Crew. Tell us about the journal you have.
It's called Who Am I? And it's a big journal. It's a guided like journaling, but it gives you prompts to fill out different things, which I love because it gets me going. But it's all about figuring out who you are and what your values are and what you really want in life.
That's amazing. So it's many, many pages,
Yes.
70-ish pages
Yes.
of journal prompt at the top and room to write on each page, basically.
Yep.
Ooh, okay. All right. That is pretty freaking awesome. Because my thing is anytime somebody's like, well, just do some journaling. And I'm like, I open that journal
And freeze.
and then what? Right. That
Right.
blank page. Like, what am I supposed to write about? And they're like, oh, just write about this or just, no, give me something. So I love
Right.
that. I'm going to have to go check that out.
Oh,
Amazing.
good.
So for the Badass Crew, you guys know to check the show notes. In case this is your first time ever listening to a podcast or especially this podcast, and you're like, what are show notes or episode notes? All you have to do is grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode, scroll under Amy's picture, and you will see the link to the Who Am I journal. Click that link, follow the instructions to download it, and you have a copy of the journal. If you're like me and you go, I don't know what to write, but I keep hearing about the, air quotes, the benefits of journaling. There you go. Because I can't tell you
Yeah.
the number of coaches I've had come on talking about, oh, well, you need to visualize and journal and do this and do this. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep.
this will help.
Good. I love hearing that. That's fantastic. And it's put together, guys. It's put together by a social worker, someone who wants to help guide you through this process. So that is fantastic. This is going to help you, I guess, dig into you, like
Right.
themselves. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Well, one of the most amazing things about being in the direct sales network marketing world is that self-development piece and
Mhm.
how we get exposed to so much more than the general public because they all kind of like poo-poo self-development because that's hard work and I'm not going to do that. And entrepreneurs are like, hard work, let's go. Right. So that is really fantastic. Thank you, Amy. This has been such a fun conversation.
Yeah,
Like,
it has been.
oh my gosh, eye-opening and like my own little light bulb moments. And I sensed other people have their own moments of, huh, like I could feel it. That was pretty amazing. I love, podcasting is amazing because like I get to sit here, talk to amazing humans like you, and then the rest of the world gets the benefit of it too.
Right. And you learn something new every person you talk to. I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, by the way, what's your podcast? We haven't even talked about your podcast. What's your podcasting? Because podcast listeners love having other podcasts to listen to. So tell us about yours.
Oh, sure. It's called Advancing with Amy. And then my tagline is Mental Health Warrior and Neurospicy Mama. And
Mm.
it's that pretty much explains it. It's all about mental health and neurodiversity. And I have on people who either have lived experience and talk about that, or people that are professionals that work in that arena.
Oh my gosh. Did you get connected to Jeff Rice?
Yes.
Okay, good. I have someone else I need to connect you to too. He's been a guest on the show. His name is Joseph Muscat. He's a neurodiversity inclusivity coach and consultant that works with corporations for that. And
that would be great.
Really great conversation. So yes, absolutely. So advancing with Amy, mental health warrior and neurospicy mama. I love it. I'm going to have to go follow and listen now. Fantastic. So we will make sure we also include the links to Advancing with Amy, because podcast listeners love having lots of shows to listen to. Yeah. I know they'll never run out of content on Badass, but I only put out 1 or 2 episodes a week. We have lots of drive time, workout time, folding clothes, cooking, all the things that we do while we listen to podcasts. So if you thought that Amy was awesome and fun and like you feel connected because you're like, oh, that sounds like something I could use some help with, go listen to Advancing with Amy. So thanks again for being here.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, God, love this. I'm sure we will have you back. Oh my gosh.
Good.
Fantastic. Well, Badass crew, you know how this goes. Stay tuned because there's another badass episode on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.